Yeah, I got to point that way. Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
Man, I'm here with the bet, Mr. N. Griffin, the man. Here we are.
Man, we are going to talk about stuff that nobody wants us to talk about.
Well, and also we're going to talk about stuff that I've been hearing some people online saying that I don't even have an opinion, or I can't have an opinion because I'm not a female.
Yeah, wow. You're not a voter in America. You don't follow under the First Amendment rules. Only certain demographics can do that in America today, have opinion. Not everybody in America has opinion, only those. If we live by that rule, then how come all these mother flippers are sitting there endorsing Joe Biden saying that the damn Afghanistan was straight when they ain't had an ounce of military in their ass?
No,
foreign policy.
It's called the 21st century left. It's called identity politics.
It is. So we are going to talk about the new Texas heartbeat abortion bill that was passed by the Supreme Court. It wasn't passed. They didn't hear it. So anyway, so let's just say that. So we're going to start out, Coach. The first thing is there was it was sent to the Supreme Court for them to hear it, and they did a decision of 5-4 not to take it, from what I understand. So 5-4, and then we get an uproar across America. Oh my God, these judges, how dare them? If they interpret the law this way or look at it this way or didn't it take it or whatever it may be, we need to have 13 appointed by the people I like so I can get what I want when it goes up. No, we just need to stick to what it is and let them view the law how they read it. That's just my opinion. I don't know what your opinion is on that, Coach.
Well, historically, Roe versus Wade is the reason that we're talking about this. And in 1971, a lot of people don't know that a girl named Norma McCorvey in Dallas, Texas, decided that she was going to want an abortion when in Dallas, and actually in Texas, it was not legal unless you were raped. She lied and said she was raped. They come to find out the district attorney, or actually Henry Wade, which was at that time the main guy in Dallas. That's why she sued him, because she said she wanted one. Let's just fast forward. That's been the precedent now for 48 years. In 1973 is when that was ruled. But there's been other cases that have come up with Planned Parenthood and Casey and those types of things. This was the way Texas did this was actually a genius way to go, look, y'all have forgotten that we have states' rights, and the states should decide what we want to do. Nobody actually acts a fool right now when we have 11 states decide marijuana is okay to have in it. Nobody's talking about let's shut down Colorado. Let's throw the attorney general out of office because that state decided to do something. Because they have a majority of people in their legislature that passed it. Well, guess what? We have a majority here because Barack Obama said elections matter. Well, guess what? In Texas, they matter too. And we actually have a bunch of Republicans down there that are conservatives that did something that the majority of this state, since they voted them in, are okay with. So it's hypocrisy again. Yes, it's a woman's right. Yes, it's a man doesn't have a right. We can get into all that. But what Texas did was actually, that you and I talked about, it was pretty brilliant.
Yep. So what I'll say is they made it, in order to sue somebody when you don't like how a law is, you normally sue the state attorney general, where the law comes from. But because the attorney general has no enforcement action upon the person that does the abortion itself, the individual who requests and has the abortion, he can't be really sued, to be honest, because he has no play in it. What they did is they took and they said, hey, instead of having us force it this way, we said people can turn in the agency, the person that does the actual abortion itself for the individual, and they can sue them up to $10,000 or more for damages. So if you go to a abortion clinic and then you sit there and you take 10 people with you, you can sue that abortion clinic. Each one of them collect $10,000 off of it and the legal fees if they win. Now, the deal is with it, and everybody's pointing to the 6-week mark, but it's not necessarily exactly 6 weeks. But what the law is you can't have one after a heartbeat is what it amounts to. And I got some stats here that I thought was pretty provoking. Is in 1 year we had 54,000 abortions in the state of Texas. Now, state of Texas has a rule that at certain points, like 20 weeks and things of that nature, there were some certain stipulations before. but 54,000 abortions were in the state of Texas, and 45,000 of those were 8 weeks or less. So if you figure, definitely for sure, that's 9,000 that wouldn't happen most likely now, and then probably a few more. There's a big argument amongst people, though, off the law that goes, well, if you voted for this, then you hate women's rights and you don't respect my body, and, you know, pretty much you're a He-Man's Women Hater Club. When actually, if you take the two people, person that wants to, that's agree with abortion and the person that disagrees with abortion, they probably have a lot of commonality, to be quite honest. Just one respects that life is at the moment of conception, and the other one doesn't. They don't mean they hate each other. They don't mean they're evil. I just think it's just they have a different opinion. And but there's, you know, people will say, hey, well, we don't have these rules upon men and things of that nature. But you do have some rules that are sex biased in certain aspects. I mean, we push for a federal law to have pregnancy leave, you know, and things of that nature. That is sexual bias right there. At the end of the day, I agree we should have pregnancy leave. But if you want to peel back that onion and walk down that plank, I think you need to walk down that plank with all that baggage too. That's just my thoughts, Coach.
Yeah, it's really weird that what we hear about, which scares people and people talk about the most on social media, is really the anecdotal worst case scenarios. You know, in the third trimester, and somebody's going to kill baby because they don't like the color of the eyes, or they find out that the kid might have Down syndrome, and that's another issue. And then we have people that are very small amount of people that go, we don't want abortions ever. Now, and normally that's a very religious person, a conservative or a very fundamentalist religious person. But like you said, there is a commonality. If somebody wants to have an abortion, I think we all agree we should probably do it way before there's a heartbeat, pain for the fetus and all that. If we could do that with the technology and science we have now, I think there'd be a very much of a commonality of maybe 70, 80% of everyone say, hey, we agree on this. That's something that we should probably try to do, is try to find the commonality. I'm not saying I'm for or against abortion. What I'm saying is, if we're going to have something that is going to terminate a pregnancy because of whatever the reason is, I think it's best that we do that where there's so much commonality, where there is no pain, there is no heartbeat. Now, what we have here is, you know, if you read Roe versus Wade, you realize that it's set forth to how you do it in the first trimester, what can happen in the second trimester, and again in the third. And people can interpret that depending on the state you're in, depending on the actual judge you're dealing with, or even sometimes even the doctor you're dealing with. But most abortions, and you hit that, I don't want to say someone, but someone in my family pointed out to me this week that the majority of abortions that happen are in the first trimester. And so that, like you said, if we look at a commonality of that and say, okay, the first trimester is 1 to 12 weeks. Okay, are we supposed to compromise like we normally have done in our history? Then we can compromise, say, okay, maybe 6 weeks is too early. Because listen, if you really know, think about it, women don't even know they're pregnant till 4 or 5 weeks in, don't even know they're missing a period, is what I mean. Then they got to get a test, and they got to go to the doctor. But if we could find something to say, okay, let's find out what a heartbeat is. We can all agree that the heartbeat would be the point. I think a lot of this would go away. But I think what's happening is we have people thinking, like you said, they take away women's rights if you try to come up with a good way to do it. And then the other ones say, well, if you give them anything, they're just killing a human. There's got to be some commonality in not just something like this, but in everything we do in this country. And that's been the toughest thing for this generation that we've been living in the last 10 to 15 years, is to come up with something to go immigration, abortion, taxes, or whatever. What is the compromise? We sooner or later, Vet, we got to figure out what's common and compromise, or we're going to end up just continuing what we're doing.
So, Coach, I will say this is, I'll touch on a couple of things here, but, you know, the art of compromise. We live in a society nowadays that everything is about, I want it all my way or you're evil. I want it all my way or you're evil. If you can't agree with that, you're evil. And that's not the case. There's some good people. You know, I told you earlier, I knew some young women soldiers that had an abortion to go down range with their unit. Now, I don't agree with that, but I have to respect them for their decision. And I don't hold any ill will to them. I'm like, wow, that's powerful. it's not something I would ever want to do, but they made that choice. I didn't. So, that theirs is just, so to me, that's extreme. To some other people, it might not be extreme, I think if we look at what was the previous law, though, in Texas, most abortions were prohibited after 20 weeks. Pill-induced abortions were barred after the 10-week mark. And abortion provider must provide a sonogram on the woman 24 hours before the abortion to give them information of the medical risk. So, we do have the after conception, the pill that some people use that was up to the 10 weeks. So there's a lot of variance already in there. And then we crunch it down to now where if we hear the heartbeat, you can't do it after the heartbeat. I will say for people who believe that conceptions is the start of life, they see it as they're saving lives. And somebody might disagree with that, but I can't disagree with that logic. Just the same as I can't disagree with the logic of the young ladies who did abortions to go down range to be with their unit for what they trained on. I can't fault them either. Either one of them I can't fault, and those are two extremes to me of this. But like you said, we've lost the art to be able to compromise in this world nowadays. And maybe it needs to be compromised and not evil, because I hate to say it, I honestly believe that 90% of the people who voted on this are probably not evil people. They're not the people that are in The Exorcist or, in shows like that. They're decent people. They voted how they believed, and that's how they should. And somebody brought this up to me, says, hey, Ian, you know what? At the end of the day, we're not in England where we had a king goes, you will do this. We're in a democracy where we voted officials to go into that building to make a decision, and they did. And then it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court didn't say it had enough there. So they voted how they voted, 5-4. That's a decision. They made it. If you don't like that decision, change the argument for the decision. People have done that before to the Supreme Court. I mean, that is what it is.
Yeah, they can change the argument, but a lot of times what's going on right now, Vet, in this political climate we have is that people believe that they change their argument at all and they give an inch, then they're actually getting away from either their fundamental ideology, on one side being a religious belief, on the other side being a belief that they're just so strongly that they should have just because they're either a woman or because they should, or a minority or whatever, that there's really no movement, because if you move any, it's like you're losing. And that's not what it should be about when you're compromising or when you're trying to live in a country that's so diverse. The reason that people want to come here, like we always say, floating rafts and crossing rivers, is because we are such a diverse country that no matter who you are, you can come here and have an opportunity to not only go for your gusto, go for your dream, whatever, but also that you can have your own thoughts and beliefs. Well, if you're going to live in a country where there's 10 people in your neighborhood that are different than you, then why do you think that everybody has to believe what you believe? And if you change to meet some of those other people somewhere in the middle, that you've lost something. I mean, it's almost narcissistic to believe that you have to believe what I believe or you're wrong. Now, second thing I want to hit up before we get through, because we're getting close and I know you got a good wind down here, is one of the things that I've struggled with this week, and my inmates and I have just spoke about it more than once, is where's the personal responsibility in all this with the men and the women? Yes, there's a morning after pill that might cost you $40 or $50. You can get condoms for free at most places. You can go by Planned Parenthood and grab some of those. You can actually even get, if you don't have money, Planned Parenthood and a lot of these places will give you free birth control. My kids could get birth control through my insurance for $4 a month. We can buy condoms at the gas station for $6 as we spend money in the car to go meet the girl we're going to go see. There needs to be some male personal responsibility. There needs to be some female personal responsibility. And the majority of this wouldn't happen. What we're doing is we're getting in there and we're having this relationship happen. And then we're only talking about in this whole conversation last week, what happens after there's no personal responsibility. There wouldn't need to be a heartbeat bill. There wouldn't need to be an abortion issue. There wouldn't need to be, what are we going to do with this, that, and the other, if men and women took responsibility beforehand. I even heard a crazy argument said, well, men and women both should just men should have vasectomies and women should have the tubes tied. And if they decide to have a kid, then untie them, someone said. And I said, you know what? If that's what it takes, if you're not smart enough to put a condom on or go get a $4 prescription or get a morning after pill, then maybe that's what you need to do. But what you're doing is you're creating a fetus that would turn into a life if you don't mess with it, because you're not taking personal responsibility before the act and putting something on it or fixing it. And I think that's the problem with our society, Bet. We talk about it from time to time. Personal responsibility is out the window. We only talk about what happens after somebody makes a mistake or a tragic problem.
Well, Coach, I'll say this is on the personal responsibility side, to have a vasectomy or your tubes tied before the, and then undo it. What damage do you do by doing those two things right there? I mean, I'm just asking because you're going to make some people where it's going to be permanent and you not realize it. So you want somebody else to be the responsible one for you.
That's what it's all about is, and that person that made the argument was being kind of facetious, but what it brought down and what it came down to me was, because you don't want to take personal responsibility, then you can go to this extreme. Well, all it takes is take a pill, or man can get a vasectomy if you're not going to have one. Put a condom on, dude. Get a morning after pill if you make a mistake. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I'll also say is, I've heard a lot of comments going, well, nobody governs a man's body, or, how dares a man have a conversation this? And I think all that is evil bending, and it's fruitless, to be quite honest. It doesn't put any responsibility in here. It doesn't get back to the thing of compromise, because that instantly narrow minds the conversation altogether. It might be what you feel inside, but it narrow minds the conversation. It builds bricks between it, and nobody's willing to collaborate then. And that's not an onus on the male, and it's not an onus on the female. It just is what it is. We start having conversations like that, we deteriorated it, and we're not getting anywhere. Whereas one of our biggest problems, Coach, is we can't talk to each other and go, wow, that probably makes a little bit of sense right there, what they got there. Exactly. I understand that. And so the other thing is I'll just say this, and I've seen a lot go, well, I don't see any men jumping up down to take care of these babies and all this other stuff. And you and I are both an example of exactly doing that. And so the difference is we just don't toot our horn about it.
And no, it's not about tooting the horn as much as this. And this is the argument. If a woman and a man have sex and a woman gets pregnant and she tells the man, I am pregnant, and the man goes, I don't want the baby, but she does, he has no say so. Flip that around. If she goes, you know what, I'm not ready to be a mom, I don't want to have a baby. And the guy goes, dude, don't abort this baby. I want this baby. He has no say so in that. What I'm saying is this. Yes, it's a woman's body. Yes, she has to produce it and come through the 9 months with it. But there are so many fathers that have been told, that I know, that no, you don't have any say so. If you don't want the baby, you're going to be marked for child support for 20 years, no matter what you say. Or if you want the baby, you don't even have an opportunity to take the baby. You don't even have to find an adopted family. You got the dad. They don't even have that right. So that argument to me just doesn't hold water. If it really is about the fetus, the baby, and reality, you would think about, okay, let's get with the father or let's get with the family, and then let's make that decision. But normally it's just the woman has that right. Man sits back and goes, okay, am I going to have to write a check or am I going to get visitation? You just tell me.
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you, Coach, as I have kind of mixed feelings on this, because I think it's genius on how they wrote the law, but I'm also like, wow, I'm taken back a second on that, because how genius it is, because it's not nothing we've seen before, and it's not anything I would ever expected. So I am taken back by that.
It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope,
yes.
Because if you start letting people start suing people over things that they choose to do, when is it going to stop?
I agree. And so I kind of worry about this law. And I do think that if it's taken to a different angle to the Supreme Court, it might have a chance to win, but I don't know on that. So we covered this real quick. We do not have the answers. I can tell you that, but I can tell you if you put 100 people in the room, they wouldn't have an answer for this. That's why we've had it so long, so controversial. Do we have a federal law about abortion? I don't think we do. Why is that?
We have a ruling, and that's about it.
Because it's so hard to do. Because nobody has the right answer that will satisfy the nation. And we know federal congressmen are not going to put that little butt out there to get slapped around. We know that.
There's not much difference in the political realm of our nation's Congress than immigration and abortion when it comes to making a final stand. It is a political nightmare. It's political suicide to make the stand to go A or B.
And I will just say this. If you do not believe this out of 530-something congressmen and senators and all this other stuff, if you do not believe over 60% of them, as soon as this is brought to them, they will look to their aid and go, what does the polling say right now?
Or back up and go, how can we change the subject?
Yep, instantly. So it's not an easy one. We're brave enough for you to slap us around and talk about it a second. We want to hear your comments on it. And we all think different. We got that. I don't have a problem with that.
No, me neither.
But we also will not be silenced either, because I'll just say this. We are in America, got that beautiful thing called the First Amendment. It says I can chatter all I want. So with that, I'm going to go from the coach
to the vet.
Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.